Prosperous Napier Committee for Thursday the 29th of April. I'd also just like to announce that as I was unable to attend the pre-agenda meeting for this, that I am vacating the chair and asking the Deputy Chair of this committee, Councillor Crown, to take the chair for this open agenda.
I get it now. Sorry.
Kia ora koutou, nau mai hara mai ki tēnei hui, ko te komiti o Prosperous Napier. Welcome to the Prosperous Napier Committee meeting today. Thank you to Councillor Taylor for passing the rugby ball across. I just would like to remind us all that we are being live streamed today, and that is available on the Napier City Council Facebook page, and will be available after the meetings finish also. So, in regards to apologies, I see that Councillor Mawson has joined us. Welcome. And I'm assuming that our CEO is still following along and present via Zoom.
Yes.
Cool. Great. Does anyone have any conflicts of interest to any of the agenda items today? No? Great. And we do have a presentation this morning in our public forum. I'd like to welcome Pip Thompson, General Manager, and Kim Hooper, Chairman of Napier City Business Incorporated, to come forward, please. They're going to share with us a bit about their organisation and the work that they're doing in our CBD area. Just a wee reminder that in our public forums we allow 10 minutes to present, and then we open up for another 5 minutes for questions and comments at the end. So kia ora and welcome.
Kia ora. Morena everybody, and thank you for giving us the opportunity to introduce Napier City Business to you all and what we do and who we represent. Napier City Business Inc. represents approximately 450 businesses in a defined area of the Napier City Business District area. The 450 businesses employ approximately 2,500 staff. Our membership is made up of 50% retail, 20% business service, 12% hospitality, 12% health and beauty, and a further 6%, which includes accommodation, activities, and community organisations. We are a registered incorporated society and are an independent organisation. We are a staff of 3, 2 part-timers and myself, who is full-time. Our organisation is managed by a governance committee of 8 CBD business owners and property owners and managers. We also have Councillor Crown as our Napier City Council representative. I would now like to welcome Kim Hooper, our board chairman. Kim will give you an overview of our strategy. Following Kim, I will share with you our key priorities and activities that link to our strategy for this year.
Thanks, Madam Chair, Committee. Thank you. Just wanted to give you a bit of a quick overview of our strategy, because we made a bit of a shift a couple of years back then. We've been adjusting, so I was going to give you a little bit of context on that. What we found was that back in 2019, we'd done a fairly good job of doing a lot of inner city promotional work, and we'd done it in the board at a fairly good governance structure. But what we were getting frustrated with at the time was that we were really failing to deliver positive change for the membership. So I said I'd offered to lead a piece of work just to focus and target on what we're doing, and what you're seeing on the screen is basically the combination of that. And I think it wasn't so much the goals that we were having a problem with, it was just our ability to deliver it. And so we did a really deep analysis on our capabilities and what we were actually really capable of doing, and decided that we'd come work a bit harder on just figuring out how we can actually deliver better for impact for our membership. I think the key things that we changed was that we really realised that we needed to separate between what was the challenge we're having was around vibrancy and turnover. So we were chasing vibrancy, but vibrancy doesn't necessarily get you good turnover, and a lot of our membership are wanting to see good turnover in the city. So we needed to be able to deal with that. And that being a vision in its own right wasn't serving us well. And what we really came to the conclusion of was that we needed to, as a vision, be going towards the goal of making Napier an eternally attractive place, not just to businesses, to residents, to visitors, just somewhere that people just wanted to come. And we knew that that was the ultimate vision. Along the way, vibrancy, obviously, and turnover is a key part of our membership. The other thing we needed to do is to scope out, what was it that we were dealing with. So as Pip said, there was 450 members employing 2,500 people, but they're also looking over $500 million worth of buildings and merchandise. And so the question we had as a group was, how do we, what is it that makes the city worth fighting for? Why is it that we need to think hard about this? And we realise it's actually a major employer, particularly of women. It's a very high concentration of heritage buildings. This makes it quite unique to some of the other towns, and it's quite a family-centric place with the parade. So we felt that given those qualities of the city, there was a real emphasis to push on and try and figure out a way to make the city far more attractive. So what we've done is that when we looked hard at the strategy, was the area where we were really struggling with was around engagement. We didn't have a very strong engagement with our members, and we didn't have a very strong relationship with our stakeholders. And without those two, there's very little value that we were able to add. So we had good governance, and my predecessor done a great job on that, and we were ticking away on the business support side with the inner city marketing and the digital marketing. But also after 20 years, we had really nothing to show in the way of assets of value to our membership. And we were really failing to advocate on behalf of our members. So to try and address that, what we found we needed to do was to get a bigger share of our membership engaged in what we're doing, because with only 1.7 people, we can't do much ourselves. We really need to get things done through our membership. So we're putting a fair bit of energy into how we go about doing that. And the second part of that was we really needed to tie in well with our stakeholders, particularly the council and the landlords, because at the end of the day, it's very difficult for us to bring on change without having those stakeholders on board with us. So that's the next part of it. So without those sort of foundation stones in place, the pillars of value to our membership isn't going to go anywhere. It's all going to come tumbling down, which is part of the problem. And the second part of it was that we had underestimated the value of advocacy, particularly in the last 2 years. We're getting more and more requests to advocate on people's behalf. When things are going well in the city and things are ticking along, it becomes less of an issue. But when things aren't going so well and problems start to emerge, then obviously they look to us to try and advocate. And we've got to be very careful about that. We've got to advocate on behalf of our broader membership. We can't get too tied down in the details of individual issues, but I think we've got a few common themes that keep coming back that we Pip will talk to. And the one that's in there that's probably a little bit different is the asset creation, because one of the things that we're doing as a board, and this is something that won't drain on the operational side, but the leadership of the board is looking to see how we can come up with something that we can do over time that will mean that we've got an asset for the society. And that asset, we don't mean necessarily money or buildings or capabilities. We found that we think we need something around some marketing analytics, getting into some detail analytics around the city to help our membership, and also looking for a better communications platform between us and our members. So that was the sort of area we were looking at there. So that's just in a bit of a nutshell. Obviously, there's a lot more detail to that, but that's just a bit of an overview of the changes that we've made and the emphasis. So okay, I'll pass back to Pip.
Fantastic. So we're a reasonably new team of 3 and spent much of 2020 and the start of this year establishing relationships with our members. It's been fantastic getting to know our membership and identifying where they see how best we support them. The majority of businesses in the CBD have had a very productive year post COVID lockdown, some saying the best yet. While it was tough to close the doors for nearly 2 months, many took the opportunity to work on their business during this time and made changes for the better, making way for better financial stability and security. With such a diverse membership, supporting services vary depending on the needs of our members. Much of our work at Napier City Business has been based at retail level in the past. This year we have moved into a more business support model, ensuring we are of service to all of our membership. We want to create many opportunities for members to connect no matter what work they do, including more networking events, workshopping for upskilling our members and their staff, as well as the usual events we host. We've had a fantastic update on member participation and partnering in the events this year we host, and 2 of the events we have hosted so far have had a 100% increase in retail participation than other years, which tells us our retailers have an appetite to really get involved with us, work alongside like-minded business and their colleagues, and support local events. These events bring people into our CBD, adds vibrancy in our city, and our retailers benefit from sales due to these events hosted. Our monthly newsletters is also a great way for us to connect with our membership, sharing what's on, updating them on progress on our key priorities. The open rate of our newsletters and key communications averages between 46 and 50%, which shows us our membership are engaged and interested in what's happening in our city and what we do. Along with our newsletter, we have a very active social media platform sharing member activity and offerings, and we have a lot of core-flooped event boards around the CBD promoting what's happening in our After 5 sector. These have also become very, very popular and are proving successful. We are developing a strong communication and engagement activity plan, which includes one-to-one regular engagement activities with our members, meeting them in their space and understanding their businesses more. By regularly meeting at the member network gatherings, we are ensuring our foundations are solid, authentic and trustworthy. Hearing their concerns and assuring them our roles are to help remove barriers and create successful solutions for all parties wherever possible. This is also a great opportunity to maintain and update our database of members and staff within their businesses. As a small team, we always strive to have a strong voice on behalf of our members. We know we cannot do this one-handedly, therefore we are in the process of creating a champion ambassador program. We are currently recruiting a small group of volunteers, initially within our CBD membership, who are strong influencers and are respected by their neighbouring businesses and who are willing to join our voice, fly the flag and be our supporters when advocating on behalf of our entire membership. Join the movement, so to speak. Advocating on improving vital services in our CBD is a strong focus. We do this by advocating at every moment we can on the things that matter most to our membership. Number 1 is safety in our city for all those who live, work and play here. For a number of years we have been advocating for the introduction of a City Assist program similarly to Hastings to be implemented in the Napier CBD. As you know, reported crime has increased dramatically. Increased numbers of begging and homelessness in our CBD are high. All of these antisocial behaviours leave many of our members feeling unsafe, vulnerable and intimidated, particularly at retail level, which is the majority of our membership. It's fantastic to see the investment of the upgrade of the CCT network that's happening this year, and also the proposed ambassador program as part of the LTP for 2022, which we will be lodging a submission on behalf of our membership. Parking access to our city is another major priority of ours, and recently we have been working with the council regulatory team on a project to create more all-day parking on the fringe of the membership boundaries, freeing up vital car parks in our CBD for shoppers and visitors. There simply isn't enough all-day car parking with the lack of parking buildings and land available to create mass parking. We are having to be creative in our solutions and be nimble to change. In a nutshell, our messages and goals are clear for 2021. Our purpose is to advocate on improving common, enduring barriers to our city attractiveness and vibrancy. To this, our focus is on safety for all, access to and in around our city, and efficiencies and timely waste collection, supporting the presentation of our beautiful city. Secondly, design and execute an inclusive, robust membership engagement program, and lastly, build on developing further business tools with the intent to integrate businesses and property owners into our CBD membership more. We are grateful for the ongoing support from key members at Napier City Council, in particular Bill Roberts and Steph Kennard, along with Rachel Horton from the regulatory team and Cameron Burton from the waste management team. Without their proactive, supportive approach, encouragement and expertise to reach our goals on the jobs that we do suddenly become more difficult at times. We value our collaborative approach and shared common goals, along with the appreciation and desire to create an eternally attractive Napier City. And finally, to finish, a quote which resonates with our work by the famous Martin Luther King is, "The world ends the day we choose to be silent around the things that matter." Thank you.
Kia ora. Thank you very much, Pip and Kim. Does anyone have any questions or comments? Councillor Price.
I think I've got 3 questions, but you can answer them all in one. It's more along the foot traffic. I see you've mentioned it up there. Are the retailers happy with the foot traffic, the way it flows? Is there anything we could do to make it better? And have you given any publicity or movement in the fact that people should walk 5 minutes? Because that's a mentality that's in Napier. People don't like walking, and I'm one of the worst. If they can't get a park outside, they drive around the block. And it's always been, could we get people to walk a little bit further? Thank you.
Yeah. Through the chair, good point. I love walking, and I park down by the aquarium and walk to work every day, and I think that's a really important part of our process when looking at parking in our city, is that there is an increase of businesses opening in our CBD, so we've got increased traffic coming in, but I think part of the education program is around retailers parking outside their stores all day long and feeding the meters. So I think that as part of the education program and freeing up parks for the important shopping that needs to be done in the CBD is important. So it's kind of a two-pronged approach.
And just comments on foot traffic for people that are purchasers. Are the retailers happy with it, or is there things we could do to make it better?
Open our borders.
Well, through the chair, I think the key thing with the foot traffic side of things is we haven't had no real direct feedback around the concerns around the actual flow of foot traffic. They would always like to have more, because there's about an 85% correlation between foot traffic and hospo, but there's about a 60% correlation between foot traffic and the retail side. So they always want more because of that correlation, but we've had no real comments about the actual flow of traffic itself. It hasn't. That's been way, not even on the sort of radar.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Councillor Simpson.
Yeah, 2 questions through you, Madam Chair. Firstly, you mentioned specifically all-day parking. Can you please clarify that? Are you referring to leased parking, where somebody pays to lease a spot, or are you talking about free all-day parking and the proximity of it to town?
Through the chair, all-day parking, but it's paid parking. So we're freeing up ideally, yes, we would like more leased parking and more spaces available to build bigger parking areas, but it's not free parking as such. It's paid parking, but all day, so that they're not moving their cars.
Thank you. And my second question through you, Madam Chair. There are a number of business associations in Napier. Are you guys collaborating around common themes and interests?
Through the chair, yes. We are collaborating with Ahuriri and with Taradale. We also meet with the Chamber of Commerce and obviously with councils, so yes, we do.
Thank you.
Any further questions or comments? Councillor Mawson.
Not so much a question, but more of a comment. It'd be nice to, along with your quote, to not be silent on our long-term plan consultation document. There's actually some really good stuff in there about street management, and I'm sure you've looked at it, and if you haven't, that'd be good. And just maybe you could give us an idea of what you think that could look like as well in your submission. Thank you.
Great reminder, and also just to reiterate, they definitely stated that they would be submitting to our long-term plan, so looking forward to that. Councillor Tapini and then Councillor McGrath.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. My question is long-term. So there has been a number of conversations at council to try and shift the way traffic comes in and out of the city. A greater focus on more foot and cycle traffic and trying to encourage less vehicles, and that's still a long way off for us as a city. But are there conversations happening amongst our business networks that that's a positive indicator or a positive direction to move in? Are we getting into those sorts of implications that'd like to see that sort of change, or are we just drumming the wrong song here? Not yet too early in the piece?
Yeah, just through the chair, specifically on flow, I think there's always a concern about cutting off traffic flow through the city. So if you're talking about the trucks and things like that coming into the city, then I guess there is a pushback on that kind of traffic. But if you're talking about cutting down, say, for example, making malls and things like that, the assumption that there hasn't been a problem is because people don't assume that's going to happen. Because, you know, the way I look at it is that talking to people is that they get a bit worried when you end up trying to create a space that's just solely dependent on just one form of transport, either be bikes, walking or vehicle. They feel more comfortable when you can have all three happening. So I'm not sure if that answers the question.
The question was long term, so that's a great indicator. Probably what I would like for you to share back with your members is that we've learnt from around the world that this is probably a good direction for the city to move in, and there are ways to provide success for our business operators in those spaces. Melbourne is one case in point. Sections of the city have been dramatically changed and vehicles removed, and it's just vitalised that part of the city. And so between now and the future, if your members get a chance to look at what that might mean for them, we'd love to hear about that over time.
Yeah, through the chair, just a response to that, yeah, certainly something that if we were to change anything that was happening in the city, the members would be very, very interested in being involved in it, because you got successes like Melbourne, but you also got things like what's going on in Auckland and at the moment. And I think part of the challenge that they're worried about is anything that might restrict anything flow in the city becomes worrying for the membership.
Councillor McGrath.
Yes, through the chair. My question was along those lines, but specifically with Emerson Street, because we have heard over the years that people want to remove the cars and vehicle access for Emerson Street. I'm just wondering if there's been any talk within amongst your group, whether it's a good thing, bad thing, whether it should happen or not happen.
No, because the people of the membership, sorry, through the chair, the membership, I believe, have not had a conversation about Emerson Street because of the belief is it'll stay as it is.
Yep, fair enough.
And if it does change, then I think that's when we need to have a look at it with the membership.
Absolutely.
And also through the chair, just to add to that, a lot of the businesses only have access to their business from Emerson Street, so their concerns are that if they close it off, how does that look with, you know, trucks, with deliveries and with the rubbish collections, etc. Ideally, from a vibrancy point of view, it would be great to have more space where people can walk and feel safe, but the reality is access would become difficult.
Thank you. No further questions? Well, thank you both so much for coming today. Thank you for the presentation. It's good to put some faces to the organisation too, so I'm sure if anyone has any further questions, they can feel free to contact me or contact you guys directly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Fantastic. So we'll move on with our agenda. Do we have any announcements by the Mayor? Any announcements by management? No. We'll move on to the confirmation of the minutes, that the minutes of the Prosperous Napier Committee meeting held on Thursday, 4th of February 2021 be taken as a true and accurate record of the meeting. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Bogue, seconded by Councillor Taylor. I'll put the motion. Aye. Thank you. Carried. Right, we'll move on to agenda item 1. That is the revaluation of Napier City for 2020. Welcome Gary Rashtinsky, our Investment and Funding Manager, to speak to the paper.
Morena koutou.
Nah.
Okay. All right, the purpose of this report is to present an analysis of the most recent city revaluation to the Prosperous Napier Committee for review. And because it's information only, no recommendations have been provided as such. The report has been laid out according to the new differentials to give the committee a more meaningful snapshot. Overall, Napier has experienced an average land value increase of 44.5% since the last revaluation in 2017. Of particular note, commercial and industrial properties have experienced an average increase of 76.2% and 84.4% respectively. Residential has seen the lowest overall increase of 37.7%. So by ward, Taradale experienced the lowest overall increase, so it's for all differential types, at 34%. At 57%, Nelson Park Ward experienced the highest average increase. And just to note too that Nelson Park Ward contains Maraenui, which at 102% had the highest overall land value increase of any census area. And also in terms of residential area, it increased by 102% as well. So some caution does need to be advised though when looking at percentages. In Maraenui, for example, 102% increase in residential land value, it does sound alarming. However, using absolute dollar terms to help provide some context does help. So it did start at a very low average land value of about $87,000 per property. So the value has increased to $176,000. So percentage-wise, a sizable jump, but it's well below the average for Napier residential land value at $306,000. So in effect, it has been playing a little bit of catch-up relative to a lot of the properties around it. Should also be noted that the sample size for some differentials in certain wards is very small, so there might only be one or two properties in that particular area. So reporting on the impact of these is much less reliable. So rather than waffle on, you've got all the information in front of you, and just if there are any questions.
We're open for questions.
One, please.
Councillor Tapani.
I was whispering to the Mayor, so through you, Madam Chair. Some of those, particularly with the Nelson Park Ward area, so those increases in gains, could you give us, well, me particularly, some perspective as to why we're seeing that level of increase, other than the catch-up that you referred to? Can you point to any other indicators which contribute towards that significant change?
Of course, through you, Madam Chair. There's been a few factors that have driven up property prices right across New Zealand, and Napier has been no different in that regard. So a big one has been the sort of the FOMO effect, especially after lockdown, of people desperate to buy into property. And so especially where we've got those properties at the lower end of the spectrum, people that couldn't normally get into more expensive properties have increased the pricing pressure on those by moving into those markets. So it's not just a local market that is purchasing these properties, it's also a national market, or people moving internationally back to New Zealand that have pushed these prices up. So that has been a big driver, and that's why we've seen such a large average increase for Napier as a whole. But yeah, so it's partly catch up, but also partly that increased pressure of people moving home or trying to find an affordable area to buy in.
Councillor Simpson.
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair. Just to get my head around some of the shifts that we've seen, are the numbers generated in this report purely stimulated by what's happened in our district, or are they also reflective of what's happened elsewhere? So when they do the calculations, are they only looking at, say, property transactions within our district, or are they saying comparable properties elsewhere have the following value attached to them?
Through you, Madam Chair. That's another good question. Nothing ever happens in a vacuum. And so whilst the valuation is primarily based on factors for Napier, they do need to look New Zealand-wide to see what is happening around the rest of the country. And so you may say, well, what is a reasonable price for a comparable property in a similar district elsewhere? So there is a little bit of that. And QV provide the valuations for Napier City Council, and because they are a nationwide organisation or company, they have the ability to look at these other places and say, what does this look like there? But they will certainly be looking at a lot of the pricing that does go on locally in terms of sales and everything else to develop those valuations.
Thank you.
Any further questions or comments on the table? Councillor Brown.
Through our own processes where we've got some valuations recently, they've come out significantly different to these, even though the valuations were done at a similar time. I was just wondering, for people who have seen a large increase, has the process already closed for that to be, what's the word for it, where they ask for their property to be assessed on more detail?
Through the chair. So what you're talking about is basically where people contest the valuation. Normally what we see is people contesting and saying that their property is valued at a higher rate, but that's usually because they're in the process of selling it, so they want a figure that more supports the amount that they're asking for. We haven't actually seen any instances where people are saying would like a lower valuation as such, but the process hasn't closed. It's something that does go on throughout the year.
Thank you.
So, sorry, just to clarify that last point, Gary, so it goes on throughout the, is it an open-ended process?
Typically there's a rush when revaluations do occur, but it is something that does happen. It is effectively open. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Well, if we have no further questions or comments, we'll look at the recommendation, which is simply that the Prosperous Napier Committee receive this report. Can I have someone to move that motion? Councillor Tapine to move, seconded by Councillor Simpson. Do you wish to speak to the motion? No. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Say again.
She can leave her in a second.
She can move into public excluded.
Those kids will have to go.
Those kids.
Right, and moving on with our agenda, we will look to move into public excluded now. The motion is that the public be excluded from the next part of the proceeding of this meeting. Do I say what it is? No. Oh. I didn't. I'm going to look, actually, before we move that motion, we'll look to a prior motion to allow our youth councillors to stay for the public excluded portion of our meeting. Can I have someone to move that motion, please? Councillor Taylor, and then seconded by Councillor McGrath. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Welcome, guys. You're in for the long haul.
Just through the chair, can the youth councillors have a bit of an explanation of their expectations whilst attending this meeting?
Can we do that in public? I'd prefer if we did that in public excluded, and we'll make it well aware of their obligations if they remain here for the rest of the meeting. So we'll go back to our to my former motion, which is to move into public excluded. Moved by Councillor Taylor and seconded by Councillor Crystal. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you.